Greetings, children of the screen, your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again, and today I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to discuss with you guys The Crow Lazarus, to which you might have two legitimate questions. One, what the hell is The Crow Lazarus? And two, why haven't I heard more about this? And the answer to those questions would be that The Crow Lazarus was a proposed fourth installment of the Crow franchise, which eventually was cancelled and replaced by Wicked Prayer. And if this movie had happened, it was said that it was going to star DMX and Eminem. Supposedly. More on that later. And the answer to the second question, why haven't you heard more about this, is because there's really not a lot of information out there about this particular project. However, despite that fact, it is still an infinitely amusing and interesting topic of conversation, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in to The Crow Lazarus. In the late 90s, the Crow franchise was still considered to be a viable property. Despite the overwhelmingly negative response to the first sequel, The Crow City of Angels, it still turned in enough of a profit to get a third installment greenlit, though it was relegated to an extremely limited theatrical release and then to video. Merchandise sales for the franchise were going strong, and likewise the accompanying soundtracks to each of the installments. But nonetheless, the moneymen could see a pattern forming. The return from each subsequent installment was bringing in less and less. Seeing the fires of their returns dwindling, the executives of Pressman Films felt that in order to revitalize the franchise, they needed to bring some serious new fuel to the fire. They needed star power that would ensure the kind of profits a theatrical release could yield, and more importantly, they needed to find a way to open up the franchise to a brand new audience. It was with this mindset that DMX was brought in and signed on in the titular role. He was a known quantity, but on the rise with a huge following due to his music career. Not to mention, he already had a few movie credits under his belt, with appearances in Belly, Romeo Must Die, and Backstage, with his next big feature, Exit Wounds, to be co-starring with Steven Seagal all lined up. In a statement released by his publicist, DMX said, "I'm very excited about my involvement in The Crow Lazarus. I like the storyline, and I can identify with the character. On the real tip, the moral of the story is that things are not always what they seem, and we must not be too hasty to pass judgment, and that's real." In DMX, they found everything they thought they were looking for. A new audience, a rising star who was also a musician and could contribute to the successful soundtrack arm of the franchise. Then all they needed was a director who could take the world of The Crow and mold it into one more suited for their new star. Though many names were floated around, the decision was finally made to go with Joseph Kahn, a music video director best known for The Thong Song, the Wu-Tang Clan's Gravel Pit, as well as videos for Backstreet Boys, Christina Aguilera, Korn, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Monster Magnet, The Ghetto Boys, Willie Nelson, Onyx, and many more. With the producers and the director wanting a distinctly more hip-hop feel to accommodate their new direction, Fubu Films, the entertainment arm of the Fubu Urban Attire Empire, was brought in to co-produce the movie, and through their parent group designed the majority of the wardrobe for the film. With all the components in place, they had what they thought they needed to achieve their new vision of the Crow franchise. A vision intentionally very different from the previous installments while maintaining the core basic elements. In an interview with MTV News, DMX indicated that the Crow films were in need of reinterpretation, saying, "It's gonna look different from the other Crow flicks. I've seen the others. I did a little research and looked at them. The sets, I really wasn't too keen on, because they were dead and real bland, with a lot of dark colors. It looked like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the ghetto. It didn't look real. There were no extras at all. You saw no regular people, no traffic, nothing. I was like, what is this?" With all the new aesthetic choices made, several writers were hired, yielding less than satisfactory results, at which time James Gibson was brought in to craft a suitable story for their new vision. In his take on the material, Lazarus, the hottest rap star in the world, played by DMX, is ready to walk away from the world of gangster rap and settle down with his pregnant girlfriend Mary. This doesn't sit too well with Stone, his friend and owner of Brimstone, his record label, supposedly to have been played by Eminem. After his farewell gig, Lazarus, Mary, and Stone are all killed in a drive-by, presumably by rival gangster Papa Smurf. I'm not even joking, Papa Smurf. So in the traditional Crow fashion, he is resurrected by his namesake, but to seek out his vengeance. However, this time we also have an albino bird who resurrects Stone with another agenda. Given the power and freedom of the Crow, Stone's true nature finally shows through, setting him as an elemental adversary against Lazarus. Lazarus begins his bloody rampage of revenge, drawing the attention of Detective Albrecht from the first film. He recognizes the familiar pattern, and along with Lazarus' sister, they embroil themselves in the unfolding chaos, attempting to find a mystical solution. But at the end of the day, it's bird versus bird, with your typical Hollywood third act boss fight fanfare that concludes bringing things to a close, but leaving the door open for more sequels with Lazarus. Right on, guys, there you have it. So that was the thinking behind and what the people involved with this iteration of The Crow wanted to do with it. Now, as I said in my opening statement, there's not a whole lot of information about this project out there. In fact, that's why I didn't touch upon the whole idea of Eminem playing the villain more, because honestly I could only find one article that stated that, and I couldn't really find a reliable source that article used. And there's in fact like so little information about this movie or this planned movie out there that we don't even have a definitive answer on why it was canceled. Meaning, essentially all we can do is speculate. For starters, the third installment, The Crow's Salvation, had brought in significantly less money than they had projected and was received with largely negative critical response, which could have been taken as a clear sign that the franchise was now 100% relegated to direct-to-video, and dissuaded them from their big-budget reimagining. The director, while having a good bit of acclaim, was still a music video director who had never undertaken a feature film, especially not a production this big or intricate, and the money men might have just decided that it wasn't a viable risk. DMX was a star still on the rise, and while the movies he had been in had been decent enough money makers, he wasn't the main starring attraction, and when judging the profits of those movies versus their budget, it could have been decided that he just did not have quite enough star power to pull off the kind of feat that they were looking for in this new re-envisioning of the franchise. The script was a mess. I had a chance back in 2001 or 2002 to read this script, and it was bad. It reeks of rich old white guys who knew nothing about the world of rap, trying to make a movie about a version of that world that was already passing us by. And beyond that, the characters all fell flat, the action scenes were more akin to something you'd see in a bad sci-fi original channel ripoff of The Matrix, and I mean even the premise of there being an adversary with crow-like powers is something ripped directly from the Crow Stairway to Heaven TV show that they did starring Eric Dukakis, which was also bad. And finally, it's possible that they just changed their minds. Around this time, there were a lot of crazy ideas being thrown out around the Crow franchise, including one iteration by Rob Zombie called The Crow 2037, A New World of Gods and Monsters. They were throwing anything at the wall to see if it would stick, and with producers that fickle, it's highly likely that in the end they just changed their minds. Right on, children of the screen, The Crow Lazarus. So yeah, that is all the people that were involved and all the concepts for what they wanted to do with their iteration of the Crow franchise. And again, we don't know for sure why it got canceled. We don't know a lot of things about this. There's lots of questions. But I think the biggest question is this a movie that you would have wanted to see? Let me know down in the comments below. For me personally, I distinctly remember when I was reading the first articles on this, and the first one I read where it was like, DMX is the Crow, I was like, oh, that's a cool idea, and then the next article, they outlined a lot of the stuff that I discussed today, and I was like, oh, fuck that, no. At that point, I had no interest in the movie whatsoever. Again, I liked DMX, and I thought that it could be an interesting take, but once I started seeing a lot of the other stuff they were doing, where like there's a rival gangsta rapper named Papa Smurf, and there's a frickin' albino crow, and all this kind of stuff, I had no interest in seeing the movie. However, what I should state is that in the world we live in now, where we've had The Crow Salvation, which I enjoy parts of, and The Crow Wicked Prayer, which I have equal amounts of absolute disdain and hatred for, and also feelings of great joy because it makes me laugh by how horrible it truly is. If you have not seen my video, From What You Mean You Ain't Seen, covering The Crow Wicked Prayer, link will be popping up for it right now, so definitely check that out. Anyway, in a world where those movies already exist, I actually do kind of wish I had seen this movie. again, it's very different from everything that we kind of associate with The Crow. The aesthetics would have been completely removed from everything we had seen in previous installments. It was really going to be trying to do its own thing with the concept, which now I really appreciate, because whether it be in comic book or in movie form, so many times they're trying to just recapture the first movie and trying to kind of do all the same things but slightly different so that people will like it. They're basically looking at The Crow as if it's a formula, and The Crow's not a formula, it's a concept. As long as you have someone who is slain with their loved ones and then is resurrected by The Crow to take revenge, that's your story, and everything else can be moved around, and you can create a whole new different world, different aesthetics, different everything about it. And I feel that that's something that, even though this movie might not have been very good, and I still say there's a bunch of stupid stuff in it that I wouldn't have liked seeing, if the movie had got made and it had been even remotely successful, then maybe we would have a Crow franchise still, and maybe the franchise we'd have would be very different than what we all think about in our heads. But either way, as I said, that's a movie I'd kind of like to see now. But again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, please leave a like and share it with some friends. Also, if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can check out all the dope content I'll have coming out in the future, including an upcoming retrospective on The Crow, Stairway to Heaven, the 1998 TV adaptation starring Mark Dukakis. That's right. Here in next month or so, I'm going to start covering that bad boy, and I'm going to do a whole season. It only got one. Guess why? But yeah, so make sure to subscribe so you can check that out, and many other awesome things I have here on the channel. Thank you very much, children of the screen. I really hope y'all have a good one. Nerd Scum. Out.